Welcome to Coinology The Podcast.
You ain't getting no money if you constantly worried about what everybody else got to say. If you constantly got your eyes on what everybody else doing, you ain't getting no money. When it comes down to closing a deal, I get it done. Every single one. I'm the certified deal closer.
Welcome to Coinology The Podcast. Hey, and welcome to another episode of Coinology. And today we have a special guest in the studio. We have Miss Jewel Tankard. You guys welcome Jewel to the studio.
Hey. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm so glad this is finally happening.
I know, right?
All right, we've been trying. I know we were supposed to film before, then we had to reschedule. I said, with your schedule, my schedule, but today was the appointed day, so I'm so glad.
This is so dope. Like, I
Thank
love
you.
what you created here. I love the office. I love all this. You're doing it, girl.
Thank you. So what have you been up to?
Girl, everything.
Yes.
2024 is a great year of a lot of challenge, a lot of change, but a lot of victory.
Mm-hmm.
So this year is it's been good. It's been interesting. It has not been a dull moment.
I see the show is coming back. Is it coming back?
So actually, Peacock ended up picking it back up.
Okay.
They reached out to us and said, we're picking it back up. And so we got some stuff we're talking about in the background, but they wanted to run it again because it was really highly asked for. So, yeah, we might be getting ready to do a little something.
Okay, so did you always want to be a TV personality?
I really did. Like,
okay.
From a little girl, I knew that I was called to do TV and big things, and I just always loved people and loved communicating. So, yeah, so when it came around, I was like, yeah, this fits. My husband really kind of ran after it. Because we were married and then had a blended family, and it was so many dynamics there. And he's like, we funny. So we just started posting on YouTube, and then our daughter Brooklyn got involved and connected us to Bravo, and that's kind of what
So
happened.
it was pretty easy. It was an easy foundation, easy flow.
It was. Well, I'm going to say it was easy until it wasn't. I think that there was another level of transparency and authenticity that I had to be willing to open up and get into. You know what I mean? That I was not used to. So that was difficult. It was very challenging for me.
I can imagine because especially with outside of being a TV personality, you also are a leader in multi-level marketing. So that means you lead a lot of people.
Yeah.
And when you lead a lot of people, you also have to lead with a certain level of, I guess, you can't be fully transparent.
Right.
Yeah. You have to be able to show what you show, which is why I'm so glad that you came into the studio, because I think a lot of people know Jewel Tankard, but they don't really know Jewel Tankard.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to have a deep dive today. And I know it just for myself, the things that I've learned, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So let's go all the way back. Where are you from?
Well, I'm originally born and raised in Detroit, Michigan.
Okay.
And my parents are actually some of the first African Americans to have a business downtown Detroit.
Okay, so entrepreneurship is all through your blood.
It's all through my blood. My whole family. I come from a family of entrepreneurs, and they opened up, a store called LaGreen's Records and Tapes.
Okay.
And it ended up doing very, very well. And we had a lot of Motown greats come into the store and do autograph signing. Peebo Bryson, Minnie Riperton, Luther Vandross back in the day.
Luther.
I know, right? Luther. Like, we had a lot of, greats come in. And so I grew up in all of that. And my parents were kind of like a power couple before people were calling it power couple. And,
So you came up in the whole Cosby type family.
I did.
So you didn't have that struggle that so many people talk about. Okay. So were you the only child?
No, I have two younger sisters and an older brother.
Okay.
A half older brother who came and lived with us periodically.
Okay, so the struggle you didn't know about.
No.
Okay. So mom and dad, entrepreneur, Detroit, especially in the height of it all, right?
Yeah.
So school, how were you in school?
So I went to private schools for
Okay.
the most part, and I did go to Detroit Public Schools twice, 7th grade and 9th grade. So that was good, because it gave me a good, balance and really knowing how to hang out in the hood at the White House, right? I really had that good balance. My parents were very pro-African American, very much pro-African Americans being progressive, taking territory. So I grew up, my father is very, he's older now. They own a construction company even now. But back then he was very dominant, very charismatic, very takeover. So I grew up with seeing daddy like that,
So you've always had a great relationship with both parents.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
So then you get through high school. Were you popular in high school?
I was.
Okay.
I was very popular in high school. I've always been kind of a people magnet. I've always really loved people. So yeah, I did really good in high school. And then I went on, and freshman year I went to Michigan State. And right around that time, my parents told me we were like in a position where we were kind of losing everything. They didn't even tell me. It just kind of happened one day. I was sitting at home on a weekend for Michigan State and seeing the tow trucks pull up. But there was never a family meeting or a conversation saying we're in financial distress. I kind of found out just because the tow trucks started showing up.
So what exactly happened?
Well, the tow truck showed up and took my car away. I had a Volvo. And my parents had his and her Rolls Royces and his and her Mercedes, and they were all taken away.
So what happened to cause the distress in the financials?
So what happened was Daddy's always been a really good producer of money, but never really a good manager or investor.
Okay.
My mom would have been naturally a good investor. She would have been naturally a good manager, an investor, but she allowed my dad to make all the decisions. So whatever her natural financial instinct was, he would always say, no, I don't want to do that. We're not going to do that. And opposed to her kind of standing her ground, saying, no, I know I'm right, she just let him do it.
But biblically, because I know you're also a first lady, co-pastor. Yeah. Biblically, isn't that what she's supposed to do?
Ooh, child. Let's get into it. Absolutely not. I mean, the Bible talks about marrying somebody that you're equally yoked with. And I think we talk about that scripture, or wives, submit yourselves to your husbands. But the Bible talks about submitting yourself to one another. Marriage is very much a partnership.
That's right.
It's not about dominating. It's not about me dominating Ben or Ben dominating me. It's about me respecting his gifts and talents, and then him respecting my gifts and talents.
Okay.
So
you think the majority of the world have it mixed up?
Oh, totally.
Okay.
Totally.
Okay.
And I think it's left women in a very financially oppressive state. I think women are the ones who are going to take care of the children and the grandparents and the parents. We're the ones that are going to take care of the communities. We're usually the givers, not necessarily the men. So if a woman gives all of her authority, all of her decisions over to a man who may not have her same interest, then she's going to end up feeling left short, right?
But couldn't that cause an issue in the marriage from making a man feel less than? No,
because I think that if he's secure in who he is,
that's
if. I mean, if he's not, you're going to have another issue. But I think that it can be done in a way. I'm a boss, but Ben will tell you, I think I'm a very good wife. I don't exude my dominance at home. I'm just a little girl at home who just wants to be Ben's wife. But when it comes to business and negotiating and doing deals, I'm very much a pit bull. So it was still being feminine at the same time. But I think that women need to speak up more. I think that what I've seen is that women end up getting economically, we're still not where we need to be, even in 2024, and particularly women of color, because it's not just about making money. It's about the creation and multiplying the money.
That's right.
And if you don't learn how to do that, you're going to always be working really hard. And I think if you give somebody that authority to tell you, no, you can't, then you could end up setting yourself up to not have the future that you dreamed about.
So mom had basically, turned everything over to dad to make the decisions.
Yeah.
Dad made some poor decisions.
Yeah.
How did that impact what you saw between mom and dad?
Yeah, I mean, my dad was depressed. He went into a depression, which I was not used to him doing because he's very big personality, very demonstrative. He went into a depression, and my mom was, way more passive and, just trying to see how she could help him. Over the years, she had did things like saved a lot of money and invested privately, but then he get in a tight and then she give it to him. He said, I got you, I'll give it back. It never happened. And
but isn't that again what marriage you're supposed, so let's talk about, isn't that what marriage is supposed to be? You save to be there to help. What should she have done?
Okay, so like, I got you. the first 2 times.
Mm-hmm.
But the third time, you have a dysfunction in where money is concerned, where this is concerned. I don't think, even with me, I would tell men not to do it. If Ben knows I have a propensity to spend all the money and left it zero, it would behoove him to say, okay, I'm not about to give this chick no more money on the third time because we're going to both be sitting there in trouble.
That's right.
So I think you have to be honest with and become very aware about what your spouse's gifts are and then what their weaknesses are, especially where money is concerned, and have these conversations. How are we going to handle it? Are we going to pay off debt, or are we going to get in more debt? And if we get in more debt, is it to create cash flow, or is it just for stuff? Like, I think those are questions that have to be had ideally before you even get married, because money is probably one of the number one things that causes divorce or causes separation.
It is.
Right.
And when you think about investing, so would you say that your parents had a lot of material things?
Absolutely.
But had they really thought about investing?
Yeah. And I think, to be fair, they didn't know any better.
Right. Most of our communities.
Yeah.
And I think, to be honest with you, there's so many people today that still don't know.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And are afraid or ashamed to say they don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So once you saw mom and dad lose everything, and you also lost the Volvo, did you have to leave school at that point?
No, I was blessed. I was able to transfer to University of Michigan. And I remember Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown, I went into the FAFSA office, and Mr. Brown sat me down, and we worked out the paperwork. And we got my tuition paid at U of M, which allowed me to come back closer to home, because the at this point we weren't put out of the house. We had a beautiful home in Southfield, Michigan, and the heat was off and the food was scarce. And I was angry with my mom because I felt like she didn't trust any of her financial instinct. And I felt like had she did that, we could have been in a different situation. So this is where I started dating drug dealers, because at that point, every pretty girl in Detroit wanted a drug boy. It was glamorous. It's like, this is what you wanted to do. And so that's what I did.
And you were probably also used to all the material trappings too, right?
Oh yeah.
Right. And so it was probably hard to find your dad, right?
Yeah.
So you entered into this space of dating drug dealers, right?
Yeah.
And so did mom and dad know about that?
Not really.
Okay. So do you think you dated drug dealers because of the excitement of that life, or was it because of the financial security?
It was both.
It was both.
It was both. I mean, it was fast. It was fast money, fast cars, fast boats. So it was partying. It was all of that. So, you pull up in the club, you got the VIP section, it had all of that. So you wanted to be with that guy. And then all my girlfriends, all of us, it was 2 of us mainly. Well, 3 of us mainly. One was called Big Felicia and Little Felicia, because one was tall and one was short. And they had, drug boys. And it was all fun until it wasn't.
Okay.
And after about a couple years, my Big Felicia actually ended up getting killed. She was 9 months pregnant. And somebody was coming to her home where she was staying with her boyfriend, looking for her, and killed her and the baby. So that was devastating. And that's when I was starting to be like, okay, it's
fun until it's not.
Until it's not.
Right.
And then little Felicia had just had a baby. Probably her baby was about 6 months, and she was dating this guy named Spud, and he got killed. And so those things happened. And then the guy I was dating, I was watching TV one day at home and found out that he had been indicted for he's a drug kingpin, drug-related murder, and got double life. And I remember going to court and sitting in court and him saying, I'm getting out. And I literally started going to church thinking I'm about to pray him out. And after a few months, I realized, like, girl, you in a whole mess. You really need to get your life together. He not getting out of jail, and he is not even God's plan for your life.
So what happened to him?
I don't know if he's still living or not.
Still living alive, yeah.
But I know he got double life.
Wow. And so from that moment, you then completely walked away from
I walked away from it because he had 2 other, nobody will know their last names, but he had 2 other girlfriends that he was dating that were in jail, that in court with him, who they were, they were his girlfriends, and they also started trafficking for him. He never asked me to do anything like that. I knew he did it. I never saw it. I knew he did it because he had a car dealership, so they would launder money through the car dealership. So I knew that, but I wasn't around it, and I just realized, girl, this is just all too close for comfort. You could have been sitting there.
You know, you're also lucky, too, that they didn't pull you in, because that was during the period of time where they were indicting the girlfriends. And if you didn't tell it all, you were gone. Did you see that story? Was the Kimba?
Yep, Kimba.
Yeah, and I remember when that happened, I was trying to tell the folks here in the office. I remember, because I'm from the Hampton Roads area. And Kimba, Hampton Roads up in Virginia.
Oh, wow.
And so Kimba, this all happened at Hampton University.
Wow.
So I remember the story like it was yesterday. And we were all sitting there like, wait a minute. This Hampton University student, she came from a great family, is now serving time because she was a girlfriend. I think what the government wanted to do was to wake us up.
Yeah,
and shake us a little bit and say, okay, wait a minute, we're going after everybody. And I think it worked in a sense, because it made people like me say, wait a minute now.
For sure.
So you're very lucky.
I got blessed, and I never, thankfully, I did other stuff. I smoked weed and drank, but I never used cocaine or anything like that. And nobody ever asked me to move any products. So, and if they would have, I think, I would have been scared, because I still had those foundational, coming from a 2-parent home that was loving and moral. I didn't grow up in church, but I knew right from wrong.
And mom and dad at this point are still together when you're going through this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And so when you start going to the courts, your mom and dad had to know now that you're dating this.
No, I kept it from them.
Wow. So they didn't see him on the news or anything?
You know what? I kept it from them. I think at that point, my parents were so checked out because of what they were going through financially. Because my sister, the same thing. My middle sister, she was dating drug boys too. And I asked her about that recently. I said, did mom and dad know you was dating? And I think they were checked out. I think that, when they saw us, we still knew how to present, and so they didn't know. They didn't know how to put 2 and 2 together. Hey, something is going on here.
So you leave him. You immediately leave that world behind?
Not immediately. After probably about 6 months of going back and forth to court and realizing that this is not about to change, here. Then I really dive into church, because I go from saying, okay, God, I went from daddy taking care of me to men taking care of me. Why can't I take care of myself? What is this about? And I really, really dove into developing a relationship with him, because I needed him to show me some things about myself that caused me to create these codependent behaviors. And I think that's when all the financial instinct got turned on. And I dove into church, and I started working for a company. Well, so I went on the other end after that. So then I started dating this guy who moved next door to my parents, who was just home from the Army, and started taking him to church. And now he was on the opposite side. He was broke, but I was like, it doesn't matter.
Oh, really? So you literally dated somebody broke?
Girl.
I can't imagine Jewel dating somebody broke. I guess it told you what you don't want, right? Right.
Well, because I was extreme at that point, and it was just like, you know what, God, if I have you and he has you, then we're going to be fine.
Okay.
I went on the opposite side, and I ignored a lot of my instincts that I knew. For example, he wasn't really the go-getter that I knew that I was used to. He didn't really have the clarity that he seemed to be very foggy about his purpose in his life. And I've always been attracted to people that are clear and confident about who they are and where they're going.
Do you believe that being broke is a choice?
I think it is, but I think a lot of people don't understand that. I think that if they're broke, they feel like they have to be.
Right. So why do you think? So let's talk a little bit about it, because I think a lot of times people get upset when folks say being broke is a choice. They feel that it's something that is just the way it is.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I think that a lot of it has to do with environment. A lot of it has to do with exposure. A lot of it has to do with mindset. If you grow up in a scarcity household, and you grow up with not having enough, and grow up with not being able to have your bills paid and not having enough, unfortunately, that dysfunction with money it becomes your normal. So you're like, oh, this is just the way it is. Everybody's broke. I tell people it could be the worst of times and the best of times. So there are people saying it's a recession right now, but there are other people that are saying, oh my gosh, I'm walking in more abundance than I've ever had.
Right. The opportunity to purchase real estate, the opportunity, the index. And so everybody looks at everything differently. The opportunities are different depending on how, I often tell people, I look at what happens, even if it's something quote unquote negative.
Yeah.
It's how you view it.
Yeah.
It's how you view it.
Yeah.
What are you supposed to get out of this?
Yeah.
What's the experience? I think it's all about how we view. And I think we also have to remove the victimization around poverty. I think we have a problem with saying it just is what it is. And when we speak up against it, it becomes a elitist behavior. People think that, oh, you're being elitist.
Right.
Jewel, what do you know about this? You grew up in a very Cosby-like family. You've never really had to have that struggle, right?
No, but I did. When we lost everything, we for real lost everything. Like we were starting at zero. I had to figure it out. The money that my parents would give me and all that was over. I had to go get my own car. So, and then even a couple years ago, I took a serious financial hit. So I think that success is not about never taking hits. I think a lot of times successful people probably take bigger hits than people that don't. But then the question becomes, what are you going to do and what are you going to create that changes the situation and gets you back to where you used to and ideally even beyond that?
When looking at your parents' situation, what were the 3 takeaways that you think, because again, it was a negative feel, but I'm sure it left you with some lasting lessons. What were some of the 3 takeaways that you took from that?
Yeah, get a group of people that have way more than you, that can help you scale. My parents, as brilliant as they are, even today, were then and are now, it was always just them two. They never really called and said, hey, let me ask this accountant what I should do. Let me ask this systems person what I should do. Let me ask this, people weren't using the word innovation back there, but let me go and ask people. They really did not have mentors that had more than them. So that was a takeaway. And then number 2, even in marriage, having a great marriage does not mean that we see everything the same. Remain an independent thinker, because it could be, it's been times where it was Ben's decision, opposite of mine, that saved us or helped us in a way, and vice versa. So marriage is not about, oh, I have to see everything like you see it. I think that's crazy. You're 2 human beings. So remain independent thinkers. And then 3, I would say make sure that you have a very good accountant and bookkeeper to make sure that you're paying attention to not just what's coming in, but your expenses, to really see what's your net happening every month, and not just spend, and be sensitive to what season you're in, because they were always in a spending season. And there's some seasons you should just be investing. I
think it's really dope, though, that through it all, your parents still made it work. Usually going through something like that
for sure
could definitely tear up. And, people will walk away from a marriage for much less.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for them to still be together and still loving each other. And even though you may not have agreed with mom's decision, Mom decided that I'm going to stand 10 toes down for my husband. Yeah. And I was okay with her standing 10 toes down. I was not okay with how she moved transactionally with money, knowing that this is your husband's weakness. It's okay. Doesn't mean he's not a good man. It just means that you can't keep letting him make the same decision over and over again. So I wish that she could have done that, but said, no, baby, I'm handling the money, because clearly this is not your area. And that wouldn't have taken anything away from him, because nobody is good at everything. That's right. In certain things, I'm just completely not smart at all. I'll be like, baby. and divert. Yeah. So let's go back into the church. So then you throw yourself completely into the church. Yeah. And I think you probably know that there's some people that find themselves with an unhealthy relationship with whatever. Yeah. Right? They get so caught into one thing versus the other, and it doesn't matter. Yeah. You can still have an unhealthy relationship. Yeah. Do you feel like at that time your relationship with the church was the way it was normal?
I do. I think it was extreme, but it needed to be.
Okay.
I was coming out of some extreme circumstances.
Okay.
I needed the extremities in my life.
All right.
I didn't need. I needed a lot of grace at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I needed a narrow road. So I needed the disciplines. I needed the extremities, and I needed to submerge myself in thinking differently about life, about my life, about who I was as a woman, about what I wanted as a woman, how I would achieve it as a woman, my motives, all those things I needed God to transform.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I don't regret one fast, one shut in, one conference. I needed all of it. I needed the spiritual parents that I still have today. I needed all that.
And so, and then the man that you dated at that time, the relationship came to an end at some point?
Well, we ended up actually, and my spiritual parents actually told me not to marry him. And they said, I think you should wait. Because they could see growth was on my life. I was progressing.
Were they concerned because of the financials, or was
I
it
think
other
they
things?
were. I think it was financials, and I think like my spiritual parents know I'm a go-getter. So like you don't need to be marrying anybody that's not a go-getter.
Is it a such thing that you can be a good person but be broke? Can't
Absolutely.
So what if you saw someone that wanted to marry a man, he was a great man, but he's broke?
Yeah. I mean, I think for every woman it's going to be different. You got to know how you set up. That's not me. I know women who make way more than their husbands, and they have no problem with taking care of him, and I respect that. But
biblically, do you think that that's biblically stated that a woman should take care of a man? Not about what Jewel thinks, but
the Bible says.
The
Bible says if a man cannot take care of his house, then he is worse than an infidel. So I think biblically, even the way men are married, they are givers and we are receivers. I think every woman, if she would really be totally honest, every woman wants to feel a level of protection.
That's right.
And provision from their husbands.
So when you said being able to take care of the house, so let's think about that though, because you may be able to afford a certain house.
Yeah.
He may be able to afford a different.
That's good.
So then is it fair to say that you should live in a smaller home so that he can take care of that, or to expect him to be able to take care of something larger because your income is larger? So what would one do in that situation?
That's a great girl. You so good, girl. Let's get into it. Really great questions. I mean, I think that's a woman has to determine what is her standard. Like for me, I lived in a 2-bedroom apartment with him, and I drove a Ford Escort that needed a muffler.
Coming from a Volvo. And a family with Rolls Royces.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because I was like, I went to the extreme. Now, this is where I was off. It doesn't matter. Bro, yes, it does. Yes, it does. When everything all simmers down, it matters how you're living, especially if I was bred in it. I was bred with housekeepers and cooks and drivers. It was in me.
And he knew this.
Oh, yeah, he knew it.
Did you think he had insecurity about that?
Oh, definitely.
Did you, as a woman at that time, throw it up in his face, too?
No.
So you never said you broke so-and-so?
I've never. Okay. I've never been that girl.
Okay.
I've never been that girl. I'll shut up first.
The insecurities, though, that he had, do you think that came through in the relationship?
Oh, definitely. Because he became jealous as I started to grow. Like he was going to church with me for a while, and then when real life started popping up, because it will, and I would be like, I'm working a job and I'm coming home and I'm like, hey, I'm going to go to this business meeting. Hey, let's go to this networking. He wanted to sit at home and play video games, and I would go anyway. And so what was happening was I go to these meetings, God would open up doors, favor would show up. Oh my gosh, guess what? Honey, da-da-da-da-da. All right. All right. And I kept progressing because I was like, I'm not about to sit at home with you. You just want to play video games, and I don't want to live in this 2-bedroom apartment much longer. Our lease is coming up. I need a new car. I'm pregnant. And I started to see he became meaner, and to eventually he ended up a couple times becoming physically abusive, and I had to call the police. He opened up our window one time and started throwing all my clothes out. Took a belt, tried to beat me. I was running down the hallway of the apartment building, screaming. Somebody opened the door. You want me to call the police? Yes. They came, had bruises on my arm, took them away. And then I left for a little while, went home with my parents. He begged me to come back. I came back.
And your dad let you go back?
Yeah, he wasn't happy about it, but,
yeah,
you know, I was like, Dad, he said it's going to be better, all that. And then, so then anyway, I get back, it happens again, and now I'm starting to think, I'm planning in my head, because it's like 2 years goes by. Well, let me tell you what's crazy. James, my ex-husband, he turned me on to my new husband's music, Ben Tankard. He loved Ben Tankard music. And I remember listening to Through the Storm, crying in my closet in my 2-bedroom apartment, feeling like I was losing my mind. Because you know, abusers, what they do is they come for your confidence.
That's right.
So my confidence, even though I always been very confident, even as a little girl, and my confidence was wrecked. And I did not feel good about myself. And I was thinking, something's got to break. I got to leave. I got to something. And I'm going to say a couple months after that, he called and said, I'm not coming back. And he just left.
So he left you?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. Did you ever find out why he left?
I think he knew. Unfortunately, he wasn't able ever to get himself together. He went back he started smoking a lot of weed. And just was never able to break that, that cycle of losing. He just hit
So you very well could have still been in that situation.
I would have left. If he didn't leave me, I was every day I was thinking, I can't do it much longer.
Did you feel a certainty of, relief?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when I first heard it, I was like, dang. Then a week later, honest to God, I moved back in with my parents and took my baby girl. She's about 6 months at the time, probably. And I got a weave and went to Hilton Head with some girlfriends. And I'm telling you, after a week or two, it was like I was totally relieved. Did not cry anymore after that. I don't think I cried even after he left. I think I was more shocked. But after that, I was like, yay.
Well, sometimes what ends up happening, too, is that we get so caught up in what we think marriage is supposed to be, what we think it represents. And we put the success of a marriage as if that's a badge of honor for us. And if it doesn't work out, it's not a bad thing to bow out. But for some reason, Jewel, we hold that and we see ourselves as being, I guess, a failure.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So you and your girlfriends, and then at this point, you are still heavy in church. You are a single mom now. You've been introduced to Ben Tankard's music. Right?
Yeah.
So how do you, and so I'm assuming you meet Ben next.
So that was about a 3-year period.
Okay.
So I'm in church. I start working for a company called Nextel. I do very, very well.
Okay.
And I have an opportunity to open up my own franchise. And I do it, and it does extremely well. And I started making my first $1 million.
Wow.
And so after about 3 years of that, having success there, moved out of my parents' house, bought my own condo, bought a Lexus, put my daughter in private school, and had a great investment account.
So you came to the table already.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know if everybody knows. Yeah. I think some people may just think, she met Ben and it was a come up.
Yeah.
No, you came to the table.
Yeah, I came to the table.
Right.
Now, to be fair, my baby brought me up. Let's be clear,
right. But you know what? I think what's important there is that people need to realize that there are some men who are intimidated by women of power, women of certain financial means. But there are quite a few men that say, I want a woman that brings something to the table.
Yeah, I know for sure. And I think that sometimes when women become successful, and I've seen it, sometimes they become very dominant, masculine. I'm like, girl.
And you want to know why you can't find a man. Right.
Girl,
Right.
like,
Right.
calm all that down.
Yeah, your tone,
Your
how you speak. And I often say a woman needs to realize that she must remain a woman, right? You can still be a boss, but not lose that, right?
Absolutely.
Even the way you sit.
Yes,
all of that
all
is
that.
very important.
All that.
So, okay, so 3 years, you're getting yourself together. You get to a point of where you are financially doing very well at this point. So you are still a single mom, but your daughter is not feeling any of that.
No.
Okay, so then how do you meet your new husband?
So I went to, my aunt had invited me to a Ben Tankard concert. And I went. And I was sitting on the second row, and I felt like he was looking at me, child. I said,
Wait a minute, all the way from the stage?
Girl, I promise you. I promise you. I was like, I think bruh is on this right now.
Okay.
So I made sure my little lip gloss was popping. And I was like, ooh, Jesus. I was like, ooh, dark chocolate, tall, bald head. I was like, ooh, Lord, don't play with me. And he came up to me during intermission, and he said, you're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen.
So he was. So he really was.
He really was, girl.
Okay, he really was.
He really was.
Okay.
He said, you're supposed to be my wife.
Wow.
First words.
Wow.
First words.
Okay.
First.
So immediately, how did you know that you weren't going to be a groupie? Like, how did you know that he didn't say that to the first 10 women in the front row at every city and every stop? Like, how do you know that? Right?
Well, I'm going to be honest. In that moment, I was like, I went to the bathroom and I was like, Lord, don't play with me. Because I felt like, because I have very good discernment. And I said, I think he really, but I didn't trust myself. But I was like, I really think he means it. And that night, after his concert, he was driving a tour bus at the time before he got into private aviation. And he said, hey, I want to bring you out, introduce you to the band, and, you know, get on the tour bus. And so...
I mean, this is the night you met him.
This is the night, after the concert.
Okay.
So after the concert, my aunt goes on there with me. We're touring the tour bus, and my aunt on there, like, in the name of Jesus. She just claimed it, you know, quietly. And I'm like, oh, this is so nice. You did so great tonight. And oh, let me tell you the first words I said to him as I said, do you have anybody praying for you? I was so nervous. I don't even know. I said, Lord, why did I say that? That was so corny. But anyway, we talked all that night till 4 o'clock in the morning, and he told me how we were going to live. He said, you're going to live your dreams. We're going to live in a mansion. We're going to fly over the world.
But how did you know that just wasn't game?
I'm telling you, I wasn't sure.
You're right. Because the first thing I would think is, okay.
Child, I was not sure. And I told him, I knew, because he was talking so strong. I literally was like, Lord, I feel like I love this Negro right now.
Wait a minute, hold on. Now,
honest to
did
God,
you love him, or did you love what he represented? The power.
All of it.
He's
all
on
of it.
Right, because even with you, when he saw you and he said you're going to be his wife, he didn't know that you were brilliant. He just saw you as being beautiful, right? And they say men are visual.
They are,
right?
All day, child.
Visual creatures.
Yep.
But at that point, in the back of your mind, you're not thinking, am I just one of many?
Yeah. Oh, no. My dad said that. Because remember, my dad was heavy in music industry.
Yeah, because if I was your girlfriend, I'd be like, girl, come on, let's wake up. Wake up. Right?
Yeah, my father was like, he could have 4 women in every city he go to. Oh, they were all, the whole family.
Because he already had a ready-made family, right?
Right.
So, because how many kids did Ben have?
He had already had 4 and had already been married twice.
So, I would have been like, okay, Jewel, wait a minute. Right.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
All of that. I was thinking all of that. But something kept saying, I really think this Negro means it. And I have to give it to him. He pursued me, and I've been pursued by men, but he had pursued me like no other man pursued me. Like, how much are your bills? Send me a list of all your bills. I mean, he came talking like, what? Father?
Did he ever tell you why? What was it about you? So you got to think about it. If Ben was traveling the world, there was a whole lot of beautiful women sitting in that same seat that you were sitting in multiple cities. What did he ever? Did you ever ask?
You know what? This is what he said, and this is very prophetic. And for people that are prophetic, will get it. He said, "I dreamed about you." He said, "You were in my dream." So when I saw you, I was like, "That is the girl in my dream." That's literally what he said. And I think, I think instinctively, it had to be instinct too, because he didn't know I was nurturing. which is exactly what he needed for 4 children. To blend a family together, you have to be very nurturing.
So when you found out he had 4 children and you had 1,
Yeah.
was there any pause for the cause?
It really wasn't.
Really?
I was really like, I love a big family. My family is big. And honestly, I really didn't want to have any more children. So this was kind of like, oh, well, I don't have to get pregnant no more. You already got 4. Let's make it work. So I really didn't have a whole lot of concern. Now, obviously, we went through, a whole nother thing after the marriage. Blending them together was a lot of work. But, I had no concerns initially.
So you guys have a whirlwind dating experience. And then you meet the kids. He meets your daughter.
I wouldn't even go out with him until he came up and met with my parents and spiritual parents.
And what were your parents saying?
They didn't trust him. Yeah. And my spiritual parents are like, you need to wait a minute. Let's see what he's like when he's angry. Let's see what he's like when he's under pressure.
Do you think they were thinking too good to be true?
Yep.
Too good to be true.
Hands down.
And you know what? You got to look back at life now and say you can understand that, because I often have this conversation with people when people talk about the pro athletes.
Yeah.
Singers, the Diddy's, the Kobe's, the this and that, and and I said, but that is part of the lifestyle. So as a woman, when you sign up to marry a man of that type of life, you are in a sense signing up for that. And so when people get to complaining like, oh my gosh, I remember Shawnee O'Neal talks about how the women became disrespectful. O.J. Simpson's ex-wife talked about how Nicole would show up at the door and knock on the door and ask for O.J. to come. And she was upset about it. But my point was, you're marrying a man that everybody wants. So did you really think it was going to be like marrying the guy to work at the post office? Even though the post office guys out here running game now, but I'm just saying, so maybe mom and dad was saying, wait a minute, Jewel, are you sure you're ready for that life?
I think the only reason that I really felt like he knew, because I always felt like older men were clear on what they wanted than younger men. And I actually was not mad that he was married twice and had all kinds of other women. I wasn't mad at that, because I felt like, now this Negro got it out of his system. Now you know what you really want, what you really need, and what you really don't want. Had I met him 20 years prior, we probably would have had a lot of issues. But I think because he had already, ran the gamut, played the field probably from Hawaii to New York, that I was getting the best of Ben and not the worst of him.
Okay. So mom and dad said, hold off. You still go in full speed ahead.
Yeah.
So what was it that made you say, I'm not going to listen to my parents?
Well, they eventually came around.
Okay.
By the time I married him, I needed the agreement of my spiritual parents and parents, because I just wasn't willing to go through another marriage that didn't work, because Jewel felt like she had butterflies. Because when the butterflies die down, you got to make sure you got something authentic.
That's right.
And real, and that God is in, and that God can help you. So I wasn't willing to trust myself again. So by the time we got married, everybody was elated and excited about who he was.
Good.
And it was good for me, too, because I felt like I had an opportunity to really know what happened. I wanted to know what happened with each marriage, the state of the children, why was there a divorce, not just my ex-wife this, my ex-wife that.
That's what I was about to ask you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because I think one of the biggest mistakes that women make is that they villainize the ex.
Listen.
And really, I'm telling you, the ex could tell you a lot about what it is that you're walking into, because it may not have worked for her, but doesn't mean it's not going to work for you. And I think, so that's important.
Yeah.
And also asking what happened.
Yes.
And having those real conversations. And so marital counseling.
Yes.
And I know both you and Ben are pastors, so I'm sure you are 110% behind.
100.
Yes.
You have to. I think before marriage, during marriage, sit down and ask someone, okay, because you're going to keep changing. What Ben wanted, when we married 23 years ago, and what he wants now is different. His desires are different. His goals are different. all that is different.
But what happens when the difference is, so like I tell people, I've been married for 26 years, right? So in marriage, and then sometimes you grow like this, and then many times you'll come back, and then you may pass. It's like in the.
For sure.
But when do you know that you're gone and there's no return?
Yeah.
How do you know that?
Yeah, I think the goal is to try to stop that before it happens. And I know this sounds so cliche, but my God, there's no way I would want to do life, marriage, parenting without Jesus. Mm-hmm. Because there are going to be days when you are off, maybe seasons. Mm-hmm. And maybe days or seasons your spouse is off. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But asking him to help you. Okay, God, I need your help in this season.
That's right.
Because I don't know who I am. I don't know who he is. I don't know what I want. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And having those real conversations with Holy Spirit first, and then maybe a good friend, and then maybe a good therapist, and then ultimately your spouse, and say, okay, this is how I'm really feeling now. This is how I got here. But ideally is to keep having enough healthy conversation along the way. I mean, really authentic conversation.
But have you ever had to tell a couple, I just think it's best that you guys, and let's say it's not even infidelity, it's not financial, they just grew apart.
Yeah.
Have you ever just said, I think it's best?
I've never said it, but I've thought it. Mm-hmm. Because I'm not going to give somebody probably an out if there's no abuse or infidelity.
Because what does the word say about that?
I mean, technically, there needs to be infidelity or abuse or lack of provision. Mm-hmm. There has to be something like that.
What does lack of provision mean?
I mean, if he can't take care of you, if a man cannot take care of a woman,
so
she's
being broke is an option, or being broke is an out.
Yes.
Okay. Being broke is an out. Okay.
Noted. Check. Yeah, no, that's unacceptable.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I think, especially
but think about what you're saying, though. So I lived a great life, and then he ends up going bankrupt, and now I'm no longer. So it's okay then for her to then say, "Well, you're not the man I married, Donald Trump."
I think if that happens, I'm not saying you leave him just because of that, but is he willing to get it out the mud? Mm-hmm. You're gonna have to get it out the mud. Mm-hmm. Because everybody has highs and lows. I've had highs and lows. Mm-hmm. You know, if Ben left me because I hit a financial low, we wouldn't be married now. But I was able to create, but I'm the woman, so I have a little bit more grace in the past.
Right.
But as a man, I need to know, okay, baby, what is the plan now? I'm okay that you aren't where you were. I'm not even mad at that because that's life. I think that's like unfair expectation. Mm-hmm. But what are you going to do to get yourself out of this, which gets us out of this so that I feel protected and safe?
What if he's not mentally strong enough to make that decision, but you are? Should you then take the charge as the woman?
I mean, I think it depends on where your grace lies. If you take charge, are you okay with taking charge? Mm-hmm. And still remaining in the marriage? Mm-hmm. And will he follow and support enough to make you feel protected?
Mm-hmm. And how do you not build the resentment that the first husband had, right?
Absolutely.
So there's a whole nother element that goes around. So again, when we go back into the marriage, and I always go back to, yes, what does the word say, right?
Yeah.
But if you're going solely off of the word,
right,
you actually had an out because you were being abused.
Oh yeah, I would.
But then the question is, did Ben technically have an out
of his marriages?
Yeah.
No.
So, you know,
well, maybe.
Right.
Because the last marriage, she was really like legitimately mentally unsound, in and out of mental institutions. Mm-hmm.
But marriage is
for better or worse,
better for worse, right?
So I guess, yeah.
It's really, you know, it's really, really, really complex. Marriage is complex. There's never really
I don't think it's a black or white. I think you have to ultimately say, Holy Spirit, what is it that I'm supposed to do in this situation?
And I would want to have someone such as yourself and Ben counsel. Like, it's very difficult for me to ever go to just people for counseling because, you have to have gone through something.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so if you have not gone through the entry into a marriage, out of a marriage, into a marriage, raising children,
absolutely,
you can't tell me anything.
Absolutely.
So when people just want to tell me how great everything is, and you've been married for 5 years, and now you're automatically an expert in marriage,
no,
you know, and let me tell you, Jewel, was a trip. People have asked me, well, why don't you give some advice? I can't give anybody advice because what works for me and my husband may not work for you and Ben.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Do you ever find yourself in that space of having to give advice to people?
Oh, yeah. I mean, for sure. And I tell people all the time, it's like we were talking about earlier with women. For some women, it would be okay for them to, you know, have a setup. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff happening today.
Right.
So you got to figure out what's going to work for me in my house, what's going to give me peace, what's going to give me happiness, what's going to give me a sound mind. And hopefully it's biblically based, because I think that's the only way you're going to have real longevity anyway in any area of your life. So yeah, and what works for everybody is going to be a little bit different, you know, but you know, people say, hey, what would you do? I'll tell them, but ultimately they're going to have to go home and have those hard conversations.
So you became a millionaire as a traditional brick and mortar business owner.
Yeah.
And then you were introduced into multi-level marketing.
Yeah.
What made you decide to take that route versus the traditional brick and mortar?
I just, you know, I always look for flow. I always look for flow. And when it's a flow, it was just like, you know how you just get in your, I like to call your working genius. And I just was good at it. People love me. I love people. I had the ability to identify their gifts, bring out the best in them. If I believed in a product, I used the product, and I'm a really good communicator. And so it just really worked.
You became one of the most known or most popular multi-level marketer in this day. I think when I think about some of the tops, you think about Stormy Wellington.
Absolutely.
You think about Jewel Tankard. You think about Lisa Nicole Cloud. You think about David Eminetti. How does it feel being in that class of, because that's a lot of responsibility, right?
It is. I'm out of network marketing now.
You're not.
I'm out. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Loving it. And loving
so
it, girl.
that's huge, because usually, you know, people tell you network marketing is that pinnacle.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Though. So I'm sure you made a lot as a network marketer,
Millions.
right?
Over 10.
Millions. And what made you walk away from that?
I think that's, and I loved it, by the way. And all those people you mentioned are my good friends. I'm proud of them in all their own ways. But it made me, because I feel like we're at the end of that model. I think network marketing has ran its course, not just the company itself, but the model itself, I think, has ran its course.
What do you mean? Why do you say that?
Because I think we're in a time now where we're in major self-empowerment. So people are looking to become their own individual brands and figure out what they really want to do and what they really like, and not necessarily rallying behind a product for a company. Does it exist still? Yes, but I don't think nearly the way it used to. I think now with so many podcasts like yours and self-help and books and conferences and summits, people can literally get whatever education they want and become a master in that, whether it's stem cell or whatever.
But let's be real about this, though. You can take a horse to the water, but does not mean the horse is going to drink the water, right?
True.
So, and let's also be real that everybody isn't a boss.
Right.
I think we live in this day and time where people are thinking that I'm going to be a boss. I'm going to be a boss. I'm going to be a boss. The reality of it is, being a boss is no joke, especially when you're talking about a brick and mortar business versus a network marketing business, right? So the question is, for some people, they would much rather clock in, get direction, be able to live out their creative dreams, have a dedicated check they know they're getting. It's nothing wrong with that, right?
No, it's not.
There's nothing wrong with that. But I think this whole image of putting an undue amount of stress on people to make everyone feel like you must be a boss, and that's not your personality type.
Yeah, I think you're 1,000% right.
Right.
I think you're 1,000% right. I would be so guilty of making people's goals for them. You're gonna be a millionaire,
Right?
Like, child,
and you can give them everything, but some people
the tenacity, the work ethic, the focus.
Listen, one thing I will say about the people that I mentioned before, Lisa Nicole was a former client of mine. Stormy was a former client of mine.
Yep.
I've studied you. I've studied David. And what I've noticed about the four of you, and I'm just naming the four of you, but I know that there's more, is that your level of tenacity is unheard of. It's not normal. You have to eat, sleep, and drink this thing. You have to breathe it. You have to bleed it. The average person is not willing to do that. And to think,
real good.
To think that I could just wake up. A person could just wake up one day and be an Ebony. Or wake up one day and be a Jewel. Not saying you can't.
Absolutely.
But you have to also be willing to take the sacrifices that Ebony and Jewel are taking as well.
Come on.
And most people aren't willing to do that.
Come on, girl. Where my offering? Where my offering, child?
They're not. So I do think, though, one thing about network marketing, I think it does give people an unrealistic expectation that you can be the next Jewel Tankard. Yeah. And realistically, I don't even know if the business model is set up for that to even be the case.
Yeah, it's not. Really, you're only going to have a few people at the top that are willing to do. And I think most of those leaders that you name were all galvanizers. We have the gift to galvanize people.
But are you handpicked? You know how... Did someone see you somewhere and say, I'm going to make, Jewel has it, I'm going to make her the face of, were you handpicked, or is it true, or did you really crawl through?
Crawl through.
You really crawled through?
Really crawl through.
Really?
I mean, I didn't know any of those companies. I didn't know those CEOs or those owners. For real. It was a for real call. I literally was just having this conversation with my husband a couple hours ago, and we had lunch. And now that I'm full-time real estate investing and now helping other people to build their real estate empires as I build mine, I said, don't you feel like I'm working a little less? Because I'm a 14-hour-a-day girl. Make no mistake. And he was like, I was like, baby, And I started pointing out some stuff to him. But I think you're right. I think most people want it, but they're not willing to make the sacrifices. And I've also realized, and I don't push people anymore because emotionally and mentally, you got to be tough.
It's no joke. It's no joke. And so, and I know you mentioned that you went through a down period.
Yes.
What happened?
Girl. So I built I made tons of money. China and I together made millions of dollars in cryptocurrency. Investing it, buying it, trading it. And when FTX, the fall of that happened, I want to say August 2022, by the time November, it had a ripple effect globally. It shut down liquidity on crypto over every continent. And Kevin O'Leary got caught up in that because he was an influencer. Kevin Costner were their influencers for FTX. So FTX held a good market share of crypto in the entire cryptocurrency pie. So you had like the Winklevoss twins, you had that owns Gemini, and then you had Coinbase, and then you had one other one I'm thinking about. It was all of them. And so when that happened with FTX, it impacted every market. So I had investments, my ROI were a couple $100,000 every month. Just from investments, no teams, just pure investments. And it all stopped. We started getting letters from each company saying, the banks are auditing us, or the banks have a freeze on it, or the banks, we're trying to figure out what's going on. We can't move money. It's stuck in Singapore, or it's stuck in China, and it all happened at the same time.
Did you see the documentary that was on Netflix about some of the crypto creators and founders of some of the Bitcoins and things like that? How they supposedly they were very young and died. It's different ones. And there was a lot of questions as to whether or not Did they really die? A lot of people lost a lot of money in cryptocurrency. And I think the way that cryptocurrency was structured too, Jewel, is a lot of people invested, but they really didn't understand what they were investing in. So the question is, was it really real? Was it really real? Like,
I think a lot of the coins were backed by marketing foolishness.
Right.
But Bitcoin and Ethereum, I think, are the only two real ones that have real technology that causes money to move transactionally, digitally. Bitcoin,
but what about all these teddy bears? What was the name of it? The teddy bears. And they were just putting... So what are your thoughts on the metaverse?
I think that Mark was onto something big. Him and his team were onto something big. I think it could be the future. I actually started buying property on the metaverse. I bought a lot of property on the metaverse.
So last night I was at this very I was honored to be in this room with some of the most powerful women of African descent across the world.
Oh wow.
Right? It was curated by Barku from Essence Magazine, right? Yeah. So I was the PR person for it. And it was a beautiful event. But to talk to them, and some of the people mentioned they have a whole life in the metaverse. I mean, selling real estate, businesses. I'm like, okay, wait a minute, hold up. I'm confused.
Yeah, you get the little goggles.
And people
you get on there and you can go in there and walk around, hi, such and such, hi, such and such. So,
but what are you buying though?
They got land, they got buildings, they got commercial property.
But it's not real though, right?
Okay, so check it. So let's just say you have Ebony's media company in there, in the metaverse. Mark Zuckerberg could come in and be walking down the street in the metaverse and see your media company and come in and speak to your people. Your girl who's right here at the desk could be in the metaverse with her goggles on and start talking to Mark and talk to him about the packages that he offers. Okay, Mark, click this link right here because we want to get your big package. Okay, great. And now you can start representing his company in the metaverse and physically at the same time. You can sell product on the metaverse. The products will be shipped direct, real product, tangible product that you can touch will be shipped to the person's house. But they bought it on the metaverse.
Real house.
Yep.
So it's like the internet.
Exactly.
Okay. So because last night my interest was piqued. It was some folks who were really rolling the dice in the metaverse.
Oh, you can go to a party and everything.
Yeah, that's what it said. Concert. So Ben has a concert coming out on the metaverse, right? They even said,
what?
No, I'm just wondering. Oh. But they said Notorious B.I.G. has concerts out there and everything. I'm like,
Snoop Dogg, like Justin Bieber, like it's a whole.
So you can bring Biggie back.
Oh, yeah.
So in the metaverse, he's still alive?
He could be, but he has to have an owner that gets on there and does it. But yeah, everything you do naturally in the tangible world, you can do in the metaverse.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
It was taking up a lot of my time.
I need
I was like, let's get off the stage.
But you were making some serious money out there, huh?
Well, I mean, honestly, no, I can't say that, to be honest. I bought a bunch of property. I probably have about 30 different units of property on the metaverse, but I ain't checked on it, child. I need to check on it.
But the thing is but you bought 30 units
you
of property.
Store it. So what happens is once you buy it, all I have to do is get on the metaverse app to be able to look and see what I bought it for and now what it's worth. Because the ideal is big companies like McDonald's, a lot of big companies are starting to buy on the metaverse.
But they're buying real property. So McDonald's, okay, I can't bite the burger.
Right.
So what is McDonald's really selling?
So they could ship it though.
They'll ship it.
Yeah, they could get, I know, right? They could get, you could do Uber Eats on the metaverse. You could go into McDonald's, order something, and then Uber Eats bring it.
Okay. So I really need to, for Christmas, I need to really get me some of those little goggles.
Yeah.
So, but now you're doing real estate full time.
Yeah.
And so, why real estate? What is it about that? Why?
The equity. It's the only way to close the wealth gap. It's the only way to do it. Until you own property, you can't. When you own property, you change laws, policies. You can impact comps and zip codes. You can create economic revitalization, which is what I'm doing right now in the city of Detroit. City of Detroit just got coined yesterday. It's been this way a long time though. Is the Black Wealth Blueprint. If you want to become wealthy and you're Black, start buying in Detroit.
So I was just about to ask you, where do you recommend someone
Detroit.
to? Detroit and so the prices are still reasonable.
Oh my gosh, 20,000, 50,000,
Wow.
100,000. We got the lenders, we got the banks, we got private money, we got.
So
title
you
companies.
getting them and you just holding them?
I'm both. I'm flipping for capital. Buy it for 100,000, put 20,000 in it, turn around and put it back on the market for 170. Just made a quick $50,000.
Wow.
Then I'll turn around and use that to buy a multifamily.
So it's still very profitable and it's plentiful in Detroit.
It's just Detroit went through such a huge hit. 2007, 2008, you had the auto industry recession was horrible in Detroit. Detroit's recession was worse than anybody. Then you had Mayor Kwame, who, took that big financial, it was a big financial scandal hit. Glad he's doing well now, but that was a whole mess. So Detroit went through financial crisis since 2007, and we are just now starting to come out of it. So I believe that the people that invest in the city of Detroit right now, over the next 5 years, we have a window. After that, prices are going to start going crazy. But most of Detroit right now, 70% of Detroit is owned by 3 white families. And another large percentage is owned by people that are coming in from Russia, China, all over. So I'm like telling my sisters and brothers, like, listen, waving the flag, please buy.
So do they need to work with you to buy? Or
they can work. Yeah, I
are you an agent or?
I'm not an agent.
Okay.
I'm purely an investor, but we have the entire ecosystem. We have everything from tons of inventory and off-market property. We have the banks to get you the lending so you can do 100% financing. I don't even need your capital. I just need your credit to be at least 630. But we got credit strategists and then funders to get your business credit cards, business open lines of credits, and we have access to private money and lending. So we can get somebody approved within 24 hours. We got the contractors that we trust that are not going to double back and steal your stuff. Or take your money and go MIA, that show up at work when they say they're going to show up at work. We had a great team, and then we got the title companies to make sure that the deeds are clean and clear and can get you to close. So
would one have to pay to be a part of this?
Yeah.
Okay, so is it like a monthly fee or?
Yeah, so I have 4 different packages. So I have a $59 package. The $59 a month package is where they do 2 Zooms a month with me, and I get on and talk about everything in real estate, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Seller finance, creative finance, short sales, land contracts, everything. So that's twice a month. And you'll be put into a Telegram with other people in the community where you can communicate and ask questions with them. We also drop inventory opportunities for them in there. Or if you want me to give you the blueprint from beginning to end to buy and hold or buy and flip, that's $5,000. I give you access to all my resources and you have access to me the entire time. The $10,000 is if you want me to hold your hand. I'm in every group text message with all the contractors. I'm checking on your property every time I go to Detroit. I go to Detroit once a month. My husband bought us a beautiful condo up there 5 years ago. So I go up every month for about a week, week and a half, and just every day checking on properties, meeting up with the mayor's office, meeting with banks, new developers, builders, everything. So if they want me to hold their hand, that's the 10.
When I tell you, Jewel, you're brilliant.
Oh, thank you.
No, seriously, it's not only from a perspective of getting into the real estate space, but knowing how to then take that and then create a whole nother, look, that's a whole nother metaverse on top of that, right? Being able to think about, the layers on top of that. Because there are so many people who are still confused, scared. They think that they need to have a lot of capital to be able to get into the game, and so forth. So I just think it's amazing. I think it's amazing. I also want to say, today's episode is, I know it's going to help so many women. It's so many women, and also some men out there, but definitely because I appreciate you coming in and being so transparent and honest. I hope that individuals learn more about you today, because I know I have.
Thank you.
I have.
You pull some stuff out, girl. I want to know, where's the therapist firm? Where that at? Okay, we need to have that over there, right?
It's just something that I naturally love to do. I love having conversation, but for me, it's really getting into the mindset of the super successful. Because with no one else realize that your ability to continue to go and thinking about next level, and that's what you've done with real estate, next level. But I also want to say to also show the love and support and the continuous reference that you have for your husband and your marriage. I think that's important because a lot of very successful women are not married.
I know, girl.
They're struggling out here. And I think to be able to have a partner and a partner that is a life partner for you is definitely a blessing.
Let me ask you, why do you think they're not married? You think it's all them?
I think they're not married for a couple of reasons. I think one of the parts we talked about earlier, not really submitting to the fact of being a woman.
Feminine and all that.
I think the other part is if you're extremely successful, it can be intimidating for certain men because it's only so many men that probably would have a certain level of success as such. You're not going to meet a lot of Ben Tankards out there.
Right. Right.
You're just not.
Right, absolutely.
Right? And I think the other reason is just for all women. Women are struggling to find Black women.
Yeah.
Black women, you know, it's unfortunate that we're not considered the desired. I saw something online that said that Black men were the most desired species. Yes, on the earth.
Okay,
Black men are wanted by every race.
Wow.
Every race.
Wow.
So
But I almost kind of feel like Black people, period. I almost kind of feel like it's popping to be Black right now.
I think that Black women are the most disrespected individuals.
At large. Yeah, at large.
Just the way that they even refer to Kamala.
At large.
Right?
Yeah, at
Vice
large.
President Kamala.
Yeah.
The way we talk and speak and refer and we are disrespected. I even noticed that even some of the comments that I receive sometimes on my podcast from Black men, instead of just saying you disagree with me, you have to degrade me.
Wow.
You have to call me names. And I'm like, did we have to go that far to say you didn't agree?
Yeah.
What is it? So I'm really trying to understand what's going on now between Black women and Black men.
Yeah, and I think that's where I want to see correction in hip hop.
Yeah.
Because I love hip hop too.
Yeah.
But the correction that I want to see is the reference to the women.
Yeah.
That's the part.
And not only the reference from men, I think women hold responsibility.
Oh, yeah.
Because what I will say about the whole hip hop, one, I think, and people are going to, the period of Lil' Kim and Foxy Brown made it okay to sexualize yourself and brag about being with him and his friends and his cousins. To come out on stage with bras and panties and to create this groupie image that now some people are able to say on this case with Diddy that, did you actually want it? Did you not? We created a problem now that we are now trying to deal with. So I think it's not just how men refer to us, it's how we refer to ourselves.
That's true.
So we have a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's an episode.
Yep. Well, I want to thank you for coming in. I want to thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Coinology. Welcome to Coinology, the podcast.
You ain't getting no money if you constantly worried about what everybody else got to say. If you constantly got your eyes on what everybody else doing, you ain't getting no money. When it comes down to closing a deal, I get it done. Every single one. I'm just going to find you a close.
Welcome to Coinology, the podcast.